All right, an official welcome to the Who Should I Call Today webinar, where we're going to talk about CINC best practices in prospecting and in following up. Before we ever touch a platform, I want to show you a really cool set of data. And this is what really kind of kicked off us at CINC thinking about being intentional with time blocking. So time blocking is exactly what it sounds like. It is simply taking a block of time and blocking it out for a certain task. Just like when we make doctor's appointments or dinner reservations or appointments with our clients, we have time set aside for that task. So what time blocking a task does is lets us say, okay, during the hour of like 8 to 9, I'm going to prospect. During the 1:30 to 2:30, I'm going to follow up. So if you're not currently doing that, highly recommend that you do. And this right here will lay the foundation of showing you the easy times to block for prospecting and for following up and why we recommend those times. So this study was actually done by MIT and InsideSales.com, and then it was published in the Harvard Business Review. So that means that they looked at all the data, looked at how they collected it, said, yes, this passes our standards, and they published it. So we know that this was a well-done study. So what it did is it, over the course of 3 years, looked at how internet leads liked to respond. In other words, when did they answer the phone? How many times did it take on average for the people to get the lead to answer the phone? Basically giving us all this data around prospecting for internet leads, which is great because it seems we deal mainly in internet leads. And the internet leads in this sense just means Facebook, Google. It could also mean your Zillow, Realtor.com, any online generated lead where they filled out a form saying they were interested in more information about a specific house or simply homes for sale in your area. Now, I like to look at this where they just kind of put these graphs together. I like to look at it backwards. So I'm actually going to scroll down and we're going to go back up and finish those last, but we're going to start with number 3. So number 3 is response time. And so this means from the time the lead registers until we make the first call. So response time meaning the lead just came in, I got a new lead notification. How long does it take me to make the first phone call? So what this graph shows us is here on our left side of the graph, it has contacts made from first dials from 0 up to 10,000. And on the bottom of the graph, it has time in 5-minute increments. So 5, 10, 15 minutes, etc. So what we can see is that we had the most contacts made from the first dial when it was made in the first 5 minutes. Now, normally I get some people saying like, I don't want to call someone that quickly. That's really creepy. And for some people, they may see a call come in with a number they don't recognize and they won't answer. And that's totally fine. If they don't answer, we're going to talk about persistence when we get into our number 4 graph. But we do see people answering the phone more if we called in the first 5 minutes versus if we waited 30 minutes. Look at how few answers we get when we wait 30 minutes. That doesn't mean that if you don't call in the first 5 minutes, they're never going to answer. It doesn't mean that if you wait 30 minutes, they're not going to answer. But it's just a good practice and a good thing to put into practice to make those first dials as soon as you can. Now, let's say you get that new lead notification when you're in an appointment, so you can't call in the first 5 minutes. That's absolutely fine. Call as soon as you can. And if they answer, have a great conversation with them, as I know you will, using our CINC scripting. And if they don't answer, then we're just going to try again later. But it's really worth it to call quickly because I like to point out this graph here too sometimes. Look at 5 minutes versus 10 minutes. There is a 400% decrease in the odds of qualifying or having that lead answer the phone when we wait 10 minutes. So it's good practice to call as soon as you can. But now you've heard me mention a couple times, well, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to answer. So what do we do if they don't answer that first call? And that's when we get to look at our persistence graph. So persistence means how often do I have to call to get a lead to answer who didn't answer that first time? So now we're looking at second call, third call, fourth call, and on. And on our top graph here, we've got chance of making contact. On the left side of our graph over here, we've got our chance in percentage, 10 up to 100%, or excuse me, 20 up to 100%. And on the bottom of our graph here, we have our number call, first call, second call, third call, up till 6. And we can see here that the highest point on our graph falls in the 6th call. So we see that 90% of the time we would get an answer on the 6th call. Now, Mike, my co-host, is here, and he'll tell you just as well as me that whenever we are in non-COVID times out in offices training people, or we're helping people one-on-one at CINC University, and they say, I'm really just not getting a good response rate, and I don't really know what I'm doing wrong. When we take a look at the data in the site, oftentimes when we hear that, what we see is that agents are only making 2 or 3 calls and then quitting because they say, oh, they haven't answered, so they don't want to talk about it. Or they might say, well, I left a voicemail, and so now I'm just waiting for them to get back to me. So we find that those are really correlate because as we can see, the data supports that we have to call at least 6 times. And I say at least 6 times because notice that the chance of making contact is not 100% on the 6th call. That means that there are some people that are still not going to answer, and we just have to call as many times as we can to get them to answer. And that actually goes hand in hand in what I just said of those agents that leave a message and then expect a lead to call you back. People don't love voicemail anymore, right? I personally hate listening to voicemails, especially when every other one is your car warranty is expired or some spam call that we know is not real. So we've kind of been desensitized to getting a voicemail. It's not like we used to go home and listen to our messages that we got on the answering machine, like, because we're so excited to see who called, right? No one really listens to voicemail that much anymore. So I actually don't recommend leaving a voicemail, especially not in that first 6 calls. So we generally get a lot of questions about like, what's the right call cadence, how often to call, how many times a day. I'm going to teach you that. Part of that cadence, though, is not leaving a voicemail, at least in the first 6 dials. And I personally probably wouldn't leave one in the first 10 or 12 calls. And that's simply because, number one, again, we're desensitized to voicemail. People don't like to listen to it very much. So we just often don't get people even listening to it. Second, it's hard to get a stranger to return your voicemail, because they see that it's a salesperson, quote unquote, right? They think, oh, I'm not quite ready to talk to someone yet, because a lot of people are overwhelmed by the home buying and selling process. So they think, oh, I'm not ready to talk about that right now, right? So they kind of back off and they won't return our call unless we share something very valuable. And so it's hard, though, to leave a value type message when we don't know what's valuable to that person yet. So if I've never spoken to them before, I don't want to leave a voicemail because I don't really know what's going to kind of get their engine running, right? I don't know what's going to get them excited to call me back. So what we want to do is wait until I've called, again, probably 10 times before I leave a voicemail. And then I want to make sure that it's, again, very valuable. So I'd want to say, first of all, I'll tell you what not to say, because I think that's also helpful. I never want to say, hey, this is Kayla from ABC Realty. Saw that you registered on my site, and I really want to help you in your home search. So please give me a call back if there's anything I can do. Because we've already dropped a landmine, which is the word registered, which turns people off because they say, well, I didn't register for anything. And then we've said what sounds like a great close, call me if I can help you with anything. They're going to say, well, I don't know, Kayla. I don't know if she can help me with anything. So I'm not going to call back, right? So we want to say something instead that's going to give them a reason to want to call us back. So let's say they were looking, I'm here in Marietta, where CINC's headquarters is located. So I might say something if they were looking in Marietta. Hey, this is Kayla from the Marietta home search site. There's a great home that just dropped that I think you'll really love. And I want to know if you'd like me to either email or text that to you. Can you let me know which way you prefer? You can give me a call at your number to chat. Thanks so much. because that's valuable. We're telling them that if you give me a call back, I'm going to send you a great home. And maybe you drop that it's a home that just came on the market. It's a home that just had a price reduction. Maybe you happen to take a look at what they had viewed and you see that they're looking at like beautiful traditional like 2-story brick homes. There's a beautiful brick home that just hit the market in Marietta I think you'll really love. And I want to know how you'd like me to send it to you, text or email. Give me a call back and let's chat to see if it's a good fit for you. And then leave your number and hang up. If you're going to leave a voicemail to someone you've never spoken to before, that's the way to do it. This does not apply to people you are following up with. This is for people you're prospecting with. So if you've already talked to them and this is a follow-up call, it's absolutely fine to leave a message of, hey, checking in, wanted to see what's going on with you. Give me a call back. That's totally fine. But for people we've never spoken to before, we want to wait. And so I want to talk really quickly before we move up on this page about this graph here at the bottom. I think it's really interesting that if this was a piece of paper and we folded this down over top, those two graphs kind of would line up, if you see what I mean, because we see the average call attempts by reps here at the bottom, and look at how few agents are actually making that 6th dial. And we can see their little tooltip here that most reps give up too soon. So you just never know if someone's going to answer on the 4th, 5th, 6th or more calls. So we just have to be persistent. And it's not enough to be persistent like 2 days a week and call it that. We have to be consistently persistent, meaning that we do this Monday through Friday during our call blocks. Before we get into what time to call on Mondays, Monday through Friday, I want to point out this over here. Over 30% of leads are never contacted at all. So that means on average, 30% of the people who register saying that they're interested in some more information never get it because their agent simply doesn't call. And that's not a best practice because we're actually kind of training them that you can sign up on all these sites and never get called. And that's part of the reason why they're so shocked sometimes when we actually do call them because they've just learned that they can put their information everywhere and never get a call back. And so you just want to really, be the person in your marketplace that's going the extra mile and making the extra dials, because that is what's going to make you extra money. So let's talk about our call block times now. That's when we're going to scroll up and look at graph number 2. So best times to make contact. This is again Monday through Friday. If you want to make weekend calls Saturday or Sunday, we always get a couple people in the chat that tell me, yeah, I love to make calls on Saturday at this time. It works well for me. That's totally up to you. What we have seen is that Monday through Friday is most impactful, and then weekends, it kind of depends on your market. It kind of depends on, are you like a sleepier beach town where people are maybe, out doing outdoor activities in the morning? You kind of just have to play around and see what time works for you. So this is going to be for Monday through Friday. So you've got 2 hours of the day here that got the best response rate. And number 1 was 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. And so we see agents, and you can even kind of extend that out to 6 because we see that's still pretty high. And for a lot of people, 6 is kind of before we're starting to wind down for the day. If you're here in Atlanta in a high traffic area, maybe, you've got people sitting in traffic. So we can really look at the hours of 4 to 6 p.m. as being a great time to make calls in the afternoon. And it doesn't mean you have to call from 4 to 6 p.m. It's picking an hour in that 2-hour block that works for you. So it might be 4:30 to 5:30, it might be 5 to 6, it might be, 4 to 5, whatever. There's only so many combinations I can make in that 2-hour block, right? So we're picking an hour in that 2-hour block, and we're making dials Monday through Friday in that time. And then the second best time is going to be in the morning between 8 and 9. And again, we can extend that sort of out till 10 because it's still fairly high. And again, it kind of depends on your market. If you've got early risers or people who might, need to wait a little longer, but sometime between 8 and 10. So again, maybe it's 8:30 to 9:30. And we actually see people having the most success when they utilize both of these call blocks. So it's not an either or. It's calling from, say, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and then again from 4 to 5. Whatever those times may be for you, it's both of them. And then using the rest of your day to do your follow-ups, to do your, meetings, your consultations, your appointments. And again, it's about being consistent. So it's not doing this one week, I'll take next week off. It's day in, day out, being intentional about your time in the platform to make sure that you're doing everything you can to get as many people contacted as possible. So I'm not going to spend as much time over here on graph 1 for best days to make contact. And that's simply because this one kind of just tells us if I had some extra time throughout the week, maybe I, am looking at my calendar and I just really need to drum up some extra business. I don't have as many appointments later in the week or next week, whatever it may be. Where can I put that extra time to try to drum up some more business? That could be every day, but it would especially be impactful on Wednesday and Thursday, because we can see that most people, we had a higher answer rate in those first dials on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So for prospecting, Wednesdays and Thursdays might be a time to do, 2.5 hours as opposed to 2 hours. Especially if you have a new agent, this would be great time for them to do some more calls on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Doesn't mean they should only call on Wednesday and Thursday, but it might be a good time for extra time of calls. So I'm going to pause really quickly and ask Mike, are there any questions that we need to answer live while we're here?
No questions so far. We got a really smart group here, either that or not happy to chat. I'm going to go with the really smart group.
Give Mike a job today. We love to answer questions, so give Mike a job. Throw those questions in the chat. So Mike, is there anything that I have missed covering this that you think would be good to add?
I don't think. I think you got everything covered on this. Covered it really well. I think
perfect.
Hit all the major topics. So.
Thank you. Ooh, I see Mark am I reading that right? There's a big increase at 3:30. Yeah, it looks like that's when it starts to go up to that high point. So maybe starting at 3:30 and seeing if you get a good response rate would be a good game plan. One thing is, I know that it can be difficult, and thank you. That's kind of led me into a good point here, Mark. So it can be difficult to put in, new best practices into play. So you kind of just have to play around and see what works best for you, because you maybe will start to call it 4, but you realize that as you're starting to wind down closer to 5, you start getting a better response rate at 5. And so maybe you want to adjust and start at 4:30 instead of 4. So just pay attention to your dials. You can even keep a little journal, simply tick marks, of calls and answers. So you can just, in real time track how many people are answering, and just play around with it, see what gives you the best, the best results. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, with that being said, I'm going to flip into a site now so we can get into the working in the P&F filters. There we go. So I just wanted to make a quick note before I get in here that this is actually a live client site. This belongs to one of our CINC University trainers, Lance Simpson. He is in Nashville, and they just kind of expanded to East Tennessee as well. So this is a real client site, and he's been with us a very long time. He's one of our CINC founders, and being one of our trainers, we have him be a part of betas and stuff. So I'm just giving a warning that you may occasionally see things that look a little bit different in your site. He's just been around for a long time, so he maybe is going to have additional labels you don't have, or excuse me, what am I trying to say? Different filters that you might see. If you're interested in any of those, or they look confusing to you, just ask about it, because it may be something that could be beneficial to you. But we're solely going to be looking at the filters today that all CINC sites have on them. So with that being said, let me get into the dashboard, and we are specifically going to be looking at the P and F filters. So for those, I need to click into my leads dashboard, and this is where the majority of your work on the CINC site will be done. And we're going to be looking here in this little black menu. We've got filters, save filters, pipelines, and labels. You will only see sites like this if you do have multiple sites with us. So filters, save filters, pipelines, and labels. Let's break down what these mean. Filters simply help us actually take this large list of leads that I have here and filter them down into the things they have in common. So in other words, I can see everyone in a certain favorite city. Skipping over save filters, pipelines helps me see everyone that's in a certain pipeline stage. And then of course, labels will help me see everyone that has a certain label on them. And all saved filters are going to be certain special filters that we have created or you've created that combine filters, pipelines, and labels. So in other words, if I find myself always saying, I want to see contacted leads whose favorite city is Franklin, Tennessee, who also have the first time buyer label on it. If I find myself doing that same search over and over again, and I want to cut down my time, I can create a saved filter out of those features. So I could say, I want to see leads at favorite city or Nashville, pipeline stage contacted with the label first time buyer. And I want to save that as a saved filter. That's all a save filter is. It's cutting down the steps from multiple kind of filter sets. What we did with that technology is we said, how can we at CINC set up save filters to help you be better at prospecting and following up? And that's all the P and F filters are. They are save filters that CINC has set up to help take the mystery out of prospecting and following up. So we can say, like if I signed in as an agent and I have 300 leads assigned to me, it would be difficult and time consuming to pour through those 300 leads and see who do I need to call today, who's next up, who's it time for me to try to have a conversation with. So CINC took the guesswork out of it, and we did that for you with the saved filters. And we're going to start with the P filters. These are simply called P filters for prospecting or priority, whichever one you prefer. Priority can be because they're the first thing you do when you sign in. It can be prospecting because the first thing you do is prospect. So first I'm going to click into P1, and I like to think of these as a to-do list. I'm definitely a list person. So I think of this as my prospecting to-do list. So if I have blocked off 8:30 to 9:30 to do my prospect calls, and it's hit 8:30, where's my prospecting to-do list? It's right here. I'm going to go through each filter, cross it off, and move on to the next one. So P1, we've got the name of it also right up here, call now. And then we've got this little blue bubble, and in the tech world, that is called a breadcrumb. And it's kind of like Hansel and Gretel dropping breadcrumbs right along the way to find their way back. In the tech world, breadcrumbs are simply what makes up this saved filter. So we can see that what makes up the P1 filter is the pipeline stage of new lead. Notice there's no other breadcrumbs. So that means this is the only piece of criteria in P1. And we can see that all these leads match. All of these leads are in that red new lead pipeline stage. Pretty cool. So we can see that these are people that we have not moved to attempted contact or contacted or beyond. So these are all people that, as it appears, have not had the first call made to them. Now we can see that Destiny is here, and she's got this invalid yellow kind of orange triangle. It doesn't mean that that phone number is actually bad. It just means it appears to be invalid. And so if it looks like it could be a real number, I'd still try to call Destiny anyway. And if it does happen to turn out to be a good number, then I would click here and change that over to that valid green check mark. But we can see Lou right here has that green valid check mark, so we could call Lou. Kelsa here has the green valid check mark, but has this little bubble. And if I hover over it, it says that they have unsubscribed from text and also from email, which could seem like a bummer. But when they sign up on the site, they actually sign terms and conditions to use the site that says that even if they unsubscribe from text, we can still call them. So I'd still be trying to call this person because they've got a good number. I probably would not bring up that they have unsubscribed. Hey, I saw you unsubscribe, but I just wanted to call anyway. I probably wouldn't say that, right? I'd launch into the same scripts that I use. And if you're curious about the scripts, cincommunity.com/webinars, sign up for our bi-weekly scripting and role play webinar. That's going to be the best place for you to learn that. So these are simply people I have to make my first phone call to. And if they answer, I'm going to teach you the process to kind of document that phone call that we had as we get a little further into the saved filters. If they don't answer, I'm moving them to attempted contact because I've tried to call but haven't successfully spoken to them. And then I even like to go to quick actions and add a note and simply leave a note saying called, no voicemail. Maybe you hear that the voicemail says, hi, you've reached Destiny. So you could even say that voicemail said Destiny. So you kind of know that you're calling the right person, right? All you need to do though is note that you called and didn't leave a voicemail. Notice that the category is already checked as call, and we don't need to worry about the rest of this stuff at this point. So we'll come back to that later. And then we would just save that note. And what that does when we save a note saying that we called, either that they didn't answer or we called and we are leaving notes about the call, that automatically updates in the leads profile in this communication field here, how many times we've called. So that way, you know, okay, I've called 10 times. Now it's time to try that voicemail, right? So it's really important that we leave that note. Now, on the other hand, if you were using the CINC dialer or you are calling from the CINC agent app, it automatically leaves a call note for you. So you don't even have to take that step. I happen to see out of the corner of my eye that Ed asked, I'm new, welcome Ed. Will every new lead that is assigned to me automatically be assigned to P1? That's a great question. So CINC moves the leads in and out of the filters as necessary, as long as you're updating the information. So yes, everyone starts in P1 until we change this pipeline stage. It would no longer fit the new pipeline criteria. And so it would no longer be in this filter, but you don't have to move the leads in and out of the filters. CINC does it for you as long as you're accurately updating this information. So good question, Ed. So with that being said, this has 147 leads in here. This is a site that we use for training a lot. So there are probably some test leads in here and some old leads in here. So the goal is to have 0 leads in your P1 filter after you've finished working in it. If you have too many leads in here to do that all in one day, you can break it up. And I'd say, you know, do like 20, 25 at a time. But the goal is to have this at 0 before we move on. So when you are calling these leads in the morning, it could catch people that came in overnight. Because I didn't mention this when we were talking about, you know, speed to lead and calling quickly. If someone comes in at midnight, I'm not saying you need to call them by 12:05. Right? You can call them the next morning when your morning time block kicks off. So this will help you catch people that came in overnight, came in during appointments, and then just getting caught up if you do have an influx of leads in here. But once we've called everyone and we've zeroed this out, then we cross it off our list and we move on to P2. So let's take a look at the breadcrumbs in this one, and it'll help explain exactly what this is. These are call again leads. And we've got a breadcrumb here of last 14 days of registration date. So in other words, the registration date, they came in sometime in the last 2 weeks. So that could be yesterday, it could be 13 days ago. It's just going to be sometime in the last 2 weeks. And on top of that, they have a pipeline stage of attempted contact. So we can scroll through and see, yep, all these leads are in attempted contact. So that means we've called them at least once, but we have not had a conversation yet. And the registration date in this next column here is in the past 14 days. So to break this down, these are newer, uncontacted leads. It's super important that we call these leads in those first 14 days to try to get them contacted, because statistics tell us that leads register on anywhere between 5 and 7 home search sites at a time. And that's because they just simply don't understand that they all pretty much have the same data, right? It's all an MLS feed. It's all an IDX feed. They just don't really know that. So they think, oh, I'm going to sign up on all the sites and see all the homes. They don't know that they can get them all from your site here. What that does mean is that You've got people who could potentially be getting calls from agents from other sites, other teams, other brokerages. So we just want to be the first agent that is able to get a hold of them. And so that's why when we're calling in the morning and in the afternoon, we are calling people 2 times a day for the first 14 days they're on the site. So when people ask about cadence, that's what we like to see, 2 times a day, as long as they're in these filters. Once we mark them as contacted, we no longer need to call them twice a day, but they'll no longer be in our P filters because they will no longer be a prospect lead. They'll be a follow-up lead. So we just want to, again, be consistent and persistent, calling these leads as many times as it takes. If they do not answer, leaving that note saying that we called, didn't get an answer. And if they do answer, we're going to cover that in our next filter. Larry asked for P2. Should we talk about last touch or last login? And Larry, that's actually something we're going to talk about in P3. So I just will call these leads as is in P2, unless you've got a very large list and you want to segment it out. That's another thing. But for most cases, most times, you're just going to call these leads in this order. So once I've called everyone in this filter, I'm going to cross it off my list and move on to my next one, which is P3. So this one is called call active. And we've got a new set of breadcrumbs because we have a new set of criteria. So registration date, this says custom date range. And that is just because we had to set it up that way at CINC to standardize this. So the custom date range is 15 days to 5,000 days. So remember that P2 was 1 to 14 days registration. So this is going to pick up where that left off and go 15 days to 5,000 days. But it also has to meet these other 2 pieces of criteria, which are the last login date. So sometime in the last 30 days. Meaning if I registered 600 days ago, but I signed in a week ago, and I'm in attempted contact, meaning I'm older, but active and still uncontacted, I'll show up in this filter as a lead. So I'll break that down again: older, active, and uncontacted. And this is really going to be your CINC gold mine, because as we know, typical internet leads are not looking to move next week. They're typically looking to move maybe 3 months, but most of them are going to be 6 months to 18 months. So CINC, Google leads, Facebook leads, even some of your realtor.com and Zillows, they're kind of just getting started on their search. So they're kind of just, going to Google, looking to see what's out there because they're preparing to move sometime in the next 6 to 18 months. So CINC is going to be awesome at helping you fill your pipeline and not just forever be chasing now business because we're coming up and bills are due and I got to get a paycheck, but it's going to help you create scalable repeat business by filling your pipeline. People who are ready now, people who are ready 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, and everywhere in between. So when we see older, uncontacted leads in here that are active, I love that because it means that they're possibly further along in their time frame. So if someone has been on the site for 6 months, maybe they weren't ready to move 6 months ago when they first registered, but now they're closer to making a decision, and that's why they're actively logging in. So we love this P3 filter for our older, active, uncontacted leads because these people are probably closer to making a decision. So same deal goes here in P1, 2, and 3. These are people we've never spoken to before, but we can change the order that we call these leads in. And again, that's because these are kind of the leads that are going to be a little bit more active probably. So we wouldn't necessarily want to, and let me make sure that I've got our default. So by default, we sort these leads by the date they registered. So most recent registrations up top. But that's not always the best way to call these older, active, uncontacted leads. And so this goes to Larry's question that he asked a little bit before about using last touch and last login. So we actually like to change the order that we call these leads by using that criteria. So I'm going to start with last login just because it's the first one here in order on the dashboard. And so we can see that CINC does track logins. This person logged in 15, 16 days ago, 13 days ago for the third time. And we can see it just goes out from there. 21 days ago for the second time. So we will count how long ago they logged in and how many times. So we may want to say, I want to see the people who last logged in most recently and start calling those people because their home search is going to be a little more top of mind because they were most recently here. So anytime I can scroll over a header and it turns blue, or it's got this little triangle below it, that means we can actually sort by this information. So if I click last login and say I want to sort by last login most recent, I will change the order that I see these leads. And now I see Karen up top, who was here 6 hours ago for the 14th time. Now Karen's phone number is marked as invalid. I would try to call it again just to make sure, and then I'd send her an email if I couldn't call her. And I'd probably be putting her name into a people search and seeing if I can find another number for her because she's someone that registered 48 days ago, but she's been here 14 times, and I really want to get a hold of her. Susan in here registered 2,700 days ago. And she was here 1 day ago for the 385th time. Now, could she be what we call a looky-loo? Yeah, she could be a person that just loves to see, homes that are for sale, but she could be an investor. She could be someone who is looking for a second home because maybe when she registered before she bought and now they're looking for maybe they're looking for to sell and buy. Maybe they're looking for a second home. We just never know. Right now, her time frame says past, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Because again, it could be that she already bought and she's looking to sell and buy again. We just don't know until we talk to her. Tammy, I'll point out her too. 38 days ago, she registered from Google. She was here 1 day ago for the 11th time, and her time frame to buy is now, but we have not called her for 38 days. So if you're a team leader or a site owner on here, I'm showing you ways you can audit your dashboard and see how active your agents are being. If you're an agent on here, I'm showing you how you can see the leads you need to hop on really fast because these are people that have most recently logged in and it looks like they're pretty active and we've got some business that could be ready to go in here. Now, that's not the only way that we can sort, because if we continuously just sorted by last login, we would be seeing the people who are active, but we wouldn't be catching the people who are on the tail end of fitting this criteria, because some people may log in repeatedly day after day after day, but some people maybe signed in 29 days ago. They'd still fit the criteria, but we'd miss them if we only did it this way. So we have another way that we can sort, and we like to kind of intermittently use these. And this might actually even be the one that I prefer to the login sort. And it is sorting by last touch. It's saying I want to sort by the last call, least recent, and see the people that I have least recently attempted to call. Here we've got some leads that we actually haven't logged a call for, which is concerning. And some of these people have logged in recently. Maybe they haven't, but we haven't logged a call for them. And so we need to hop on it and get them that call, right? So both of those sorts are valid. This one's probably preferable to use more often, but last login is great. Last login is especially great if you were calling on call nights, or if you want to talk to people who have been on the site probably that day. But last touch is going to help you catch the people who maybe are just slipping through the cracks and haven't gotten a phone call recently. So I want to pause now. Mike, any questions? I see that you have been responding in the chat, but are there any that you need to pitch to me live?
There we go. So I have a couple to pitch live, and they're kind of around if a lead responds to an auto track text, whether that's the speed to lead or another direct message that maybe the agent sent, but then stops responding, maybe they reply once or twice, then stop responding, would you still mark them as contacted or would you keep them in attempted?
Yeah, good question. So if I have never had a conversation with this person, I'm not marking them as contacted. And by conversation, I mean phone call. So texting and emailing is awesome, but I don't consider that a conversation because I can't sell someone a house via text. I have to talk to them. I have to find out what they're looking for. I have to dig deeper. We always train in our events and here that we don't want to be order takers. And so I can take someone's order via text. How many phone calls, how many, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, what area, what price point, I can find that out, but I need to find out their motivation as well. I need to start building rapport. I really need to start building a relationship with this person. And I can take their order via text, but I can only build rapport in a relationship when we start building trust and communication. And that's going to be on a phone call. So if I've never had that phone call with someone where I learned their 3 W's, their what, their when, and their why, I'm not marking them as contacted. Texts and emails are great, but don't mark them as contacted until you have that conversation. Great question, whoever sent that in. What's next,
Stephanie.
Mike? Thank you, Stephanie.
Our next question kind of ties into that auto track reply. I originally said that I'd pitch it to the group because I didn't know the answer, but I did find it out. So Vicky asked, once we change the pipeline to contacted, does that stop any auto tracks text to the clients? And the speed to lead campaign that we are, or speed to lead auto track that we're launching sites with now does have the end trigger for contacted. That said, your site owners can change that and it can adjust and have all of their own rules around every auto track that's active in the platform. So we highly recommend, if your team is using auto tracks, to make sure that you understand what those stop and start triggers are, because they can vary auto track to auto track. But no, the speed to lead auto track that we're launching on new sites is kind of doing that quick text and emails as soon as that lead registers. That one does end on contacted, and if the lead replies to that as well.
Awesome, thank you, Mike. Any other questions?
Those are all that we have right now.
Okay. I noticed one about sorting by 2 things at once, and maybe it was last login and past due time frame. So you cannot sort by 2 pieces of information at a time. We can only sort by 1 piece of criteria. So sort by, last login, for example, and then you can add a filter to it. So once you've changed your sort, then we could go to our time frame filter and select, sorry, our little videos are in my way. Let me move those. And then sort by past, filter by past. So we can't sort by 2 pieces, but we can sort and filter at the same time. And now, because I've done that, I'm going to hit my reset all button, and I'll show you guys this because it's a button I hit all the time when I'm working on sites. Reset all simply takes us back to our default. So it would clear us out of our filters. It would clear us out of our sort. It just is going to go back to everything being factory settings, right? So I mentioned that I would share with you what I do to a lead when they actually do answer and we do have a conversation. But to do that, I want to use a test lead just because I don't want to mess with anyone who might be a real lead in here. So I'm just going to search for the word test and find a test lead for that. And we will use this one here for CINC test. So let's say I called CINC test and I have a conversation with them. We are able to talk about what they're looking for, the features of the home, the location of the home. I know that they want to move, before the next school year starts. They are wanting to be in the house by, say, August. And I know that they're doing this because they have a child that got accepted into a special program at a school, and so they want to be closer to this school to drop their kid off. That's the reasoning, right? So I know their motivation. I know why they're looking to make this move. I know why they're looking at that time frame, and I know the features of the home that they're looking for. Once I know all that, I can safely consider that person contacted, and I would move them into that contacted pipeline stage. Now, so far, we've only talked about adding a note saying that we called and didn't leave a voicemail, but once I've had a good conversation, I need to note all those details. So as I continue to work this person through the rest of their time frame, I can refer back to that note and see all that good information that I got right at the beginning. So I'm going to make this box bigger. And I like to keep this as a list, but it's totally up to you. I find that if it's like a big paragraph that I wrote about this conversation, it's a little harder to pick the details out. So I would probably put this as a list at this point, what they're looking for, when they're looking to move, what their motivation is, details about them. Are they married? What do they do for work? If they mention that they love to fish, on the weekends, whatever their hobbies may be. Do they have children? Are their children into activities that keep them busy? I'd put details about them in there. Anything that you think needs to go in here, put it in here, because we don't want to rely on handwritten notes that we might lose, or our memories, because our brains are full of so much to do. It's not reliable. This is reliable. So now that I have this great note with everything that I know about this person so far, I like to pin this note. And what that means is it's going to pin to the top of the lead's profile, and it won't be hidden beneath other things like emails that have been sent, them opening property alerts, or what have you. So this used to be called sticky. If you've been with us for a while, you may remember that this is called sticky notes, until a recent update to the leads profile. And now they are pinned notes. And then we can also notify someone else working the site that this note has been added. So this is going to be really important if you have for example, lender working the site, and you wanted to let your lender know, hey, this person does need to get pre-qualified. So can you reach out? Here are the details. Maybe if you need to tag your site owner or team leader because you need help with something, or you need them to change who this lead's assigned to, you can tag them here in the note. And then that keeps everything here in sync. So someone can't say, oh, I never got the email, I didn't get the text, I didn't get your note. Keep it all here in sync. So there can be none of that, I didn't get it. So once I've successfully added that note, now I'm no longer prospecting on this person, right? Because if you remember, all of our P filters were new lead or attempted contact leads. And now this person's contacted. So they're no longer going to be falling into those P filters. So if I just called it a day now and moved on, nothing's going to be prompting me to call this person again and follow up, because once I'm done prospecting, I'm following up. And that's, you've probably heard the saying, fortune's in the follow-up. If we have a great conversation once and never talk to that person again, they're not calling me back when it's time for them to make a move. They've moved on, and they're probably working with someone who did a better job following up. So how do we follow up in CINC? That is here in the quick actions as a new reminder. So once I've marked someone as contacted, my next step is to leave that note and plan my follow-up. I'm going to leave most of these as a call, because we do have to most frequently call people to follow up. But we can also be reminded to email someone or to do something else. This other could be a text, it could be a postcard, it could be a pop by, it could be dropping something in the, a door knock type of thing, whatever it may be. But most of them are going to be left as call. And then some details here are really helpful, because you're going to get pinged throughout the day with notifications of new leads, things to do, reminders. So leaving some details here is a good thing to help keep you a little bit more focused. So some people will simply copy and paste the first note in here. So when this reminder pops up, you see that first note you left. and you'll be able to see all those details. Some people will just kind of put something that they bonded in. So maybe we find out that we both went to the same college. Maybe we find out that they are in, one of the neighborhoods they're interested in is the one where we grew up, whatever it may be. Just help yourself out and put a fine, amount of details here. You don't have to write a novel, is what I'm trying to get at. And then we choose our date. So if we spoke to them today on March 16th, I'm going to be looking at following up with them by April 16th. So we like to see reminders every 30 days or so. And what we find is that allows us to make enough touches throughout the lead's time frame that by the time they're ready to make a decision, they know, like, and trust us. And those are the three things that people have to feel comfortable working with someone that, prospected them like we are. So they have to know, like, and trust us. Knowing us means that we've talked to them enough that they have built familiarity with us. They have to like us, meaning that they feel like we would be a good person to work with, and they have to trust that we will have their best interest at heart. And we cannot do that if we're just texting them like every 6 months or so. So we have to have conversations every 30 days. And it could be that you call one month, text the next month, but don't rely too heavily on texting and emailing, because calling and talking on the phone really gives you a better ability to have them know, like, and trust you. So maybe I don't want to do reminders on Friday, so I could even say I'm going to call them on the 14th, as long as it's sometime in that 30-day range. You can set a specific time to call you, especially if someone says, hey, I'm available only after 4 o'clock. Maybe you'd want to schedule for 4:30. But what I like even more than that is to set everything for 8 a.m. And it doesn't mean you're going to do all your follow-ups at 8 a.m. because that's actually in most of your prospecting blocks. But this way, everything hits at 8 a.m. And then I'm not distracted throughout the day by reminders popping up, every which way, and having it break my focus, because I'm all about keeping my focus into what I'm working on right then. And when I set these to all hit at 8 a.m., I'm just not pulled with my focus by getting, a text reminder here, text reminder there, and having to change what I'm working on. So that way I just know, okay, here's everything I have to do today. And if you have a time block where all your reminders, you're going to work from, say, 1:30 to 2:30, then you could even have these hit at 1:30. So it just depends on your workflow and what works best for you. There's no right or wrong way to do this, as long as you're leaving a reminder. So now we have moved the pipeline stage. We've left a note, we've left a reminder, but I also talked to this person about exactly what they're looking for in a home. So I also need to adjust their saved search. So CINC does set people up on a saved search based on the homes that they've looked at, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly what they're looking for. Now you've had a conversation to find out exactly what they're looking for, so you need to adjust the saved search, because that will change the property alerts that they're getting, and it will make sure that the homes hitting their inbox match what they told you they're looking for. That's the number one way to start to build trust with someone, is to send them things that they told you that they were looking for. If they continue to get things that may be a little off after they've spoken to you, they'll feel like they weren't heard, you didn't listen, you didn't remember, and maybe they won't begin to build that trust with you. So after we've added the note, the reminder, change the pipeline stage, now I'm going to head over to my activity column, and I'm going to click where it says one saved, and I'm going to see the criteria that it is here, but I'm going to click edit to change that. Now, best practice here is to leave these fairly open, to not get super specific, because if someone does have a time frame of, say, 6 months or more, we want them to get a few properties in their inbox as often as possible. And when we make these really specific, so we have in our search results here, say like 4 homes, we can't send them homes very often. We're going to send them maybe 2 today, 2 tomorrow, and then we have to wait for something new that hits the market and meets that criteria before we can send them another one. So we like to keep these just generally a little bit broad. And so I'm going to take a look at what we've got set up here. Again, these are breadcrumbs just like we had before. But maybe they told me they were looking for at least 3 bedrooms, and they actually don't want to be in the city of Nashville, but they also are looking at additional cities. We just kind of can now come in here and start to make these changes. So scrolling down, I can adjust for beds and baths. They told me they needed a 3-2. I can say they need at least 3 and at least 2. Maybe they told me that their budget they've been pre-approved for is, let's say they told us they were approved for 375, then maybe I want to start the search at like 340. Or excuse me, if they said 375, I'd want to do my top range at like probably like 390, because I mean in this market it probably with it being such a seller's market in so many places, maybe they wouldn't be able to, negotiate down, but you never know. And then that's a pretty big range. So I could maybe even say we want to start at 250. You can play around with your minimum and maximum price. We can put in a property type here. If they say I'm only interested in, like detached single family homes, you can do that here. If they were also interested in getting into a townhome, then you could do multiple. And then another important one over here is the MLS status of active. If you only want them to get homes that are in this active status on the MLS, we just have to mark that here. And that'll just make sure that anything that gets sent to them is in that active status and not in the pending status. If you don't see that on your site and you want to add it, you can give a call to CINC support and they can get that added for you. It doesn't come on every site standard because it's just not built that way, but you can add it here, have us add it for you here if you'd like. And then what we can see is we have all of our breadcrumbs. If I did want to add additional cities, I just realized I skipped over that. Like I said, maybe they didn't want to be in Nashville proper, but they did give us other cities they're interested in. Notice I just start to type them, let my drop-down menu open up, and then click them from here. If I just typed in Franklin and hit enter, it will add it, but notice it added it, it says KW Franklin, that added it as a keyword. And that's not going to search the MLS for the city. That's going to search in the agent remarks for the word Franklin, and that won't pull up what we need it to. So that's why we start to type it, let our drop-down menu open up, and select it from here. Now from here, you maybe noticed that when I typed in some words here, we had other things open up. So as long as your MLS allows it, you can search by criteria that's not a city here. So you could do subdivision, zip code, school district, anything that your MLS allows you to search by or kind of provides as a search field, we can search by that here. But you do have to keep in mind that we can't search by 2 pieces of criteria here. So, so for example, I couldn't search by city and school district because those could conflict and kick out things that should otherwise match. So if I wanted to search by multiple cities, you see here that I can. But if I instead wanted to search by school district, I would just need to remove the cities and then go in and do the school district. If I wanted to search by zip, I'd remove everything and go in and only put zip codes, but I could put multiple zip codes. From here, I can see my search results. And if I click over to that tab, I can see them plotted out on a map here. If they had given me a certain area that they wanted to be in, I could remove all other location criteria and draw a map search in here. And then it'll show me any matches in there. Scrolling down, here are all of the homes that match my criteria. And if I just spoke to this person, I might select a few that I think look good and then even share those directly to them. And say, if this person was the lead CINC test, say something like, "Hi CINC, great speaking with you today." It's always hard to type when you're being watched. Here are a couple homes that, match exactly what you're looking for. I'd love to see what you think of them, so I get a feel for what your style is. Let me know, and I'm looking forward to working with you. When I select them and click share properties, it automatically attached those listings to this email. And now when they click on this, it's going to take them to your site. You're going to be able to see that they viewed the home. You're going to be able to see how many times they viewed the home. You're going to see, did they even just open the email? So it's really important to send all your email through CINC and to send all your homes through CINC, because then we can track that activity for you. Now, if I wanted to change how often they got this, I can change that here in the engagement dropdown. It's defaulted to daily, but maybe you have someone that calls and says, unsubscribe me. I'm getting too many emails. Don't immediately go in and unsubscribe them. Ask them, "Oh, I'm so sorry. How often would you like to get those? Because I can slow them down for you." And then they say, "Well, just a couple times a week." Boom. "Oh, I only want to get them 1 day a week." Boom. We can change all that. Now, probably the most important button on this screen is very small, and it's right next to the delete button, and it's save. So be careful clicking save, but we have to save before we leave, or it will lose all those good changes we just made. So we have to save, and now this person will get an email every Thursday with homes that meet their criteria. Mike, any questions on saved search that we need to cover before we take a look at our follow-up filters?
Yes, so there are a couple questions. The first one we'll do, since it directly ties to the search, is Stephanie asked, she has buyers that want the bed and bath on the main floor. Is there a feature for this? And so that would be those additional tags.
Yeah, so if we keep scrolling down, I mentioned wanting to keep this pretty open, but if there is a non-negotiable like that, like for accessibility purposes or something, you can, as you scroll down, start to get more specific. If, as I'm showing this, you don't see exactly what you're looking for, you would just need to get in touch with support to see if they can build that filter out for you. But we can get more specific about the building itself. This one, for example, has bedrooms on main. And another option may be to scroll down to these tags. And again, bedrooms on main, some of them even will say master on main. It just depends on what your MLS is set up for. So support can let you know if there's a tag down here that you don't see that you would like. Just let them know, and they can see what's possible. Did I miss anything in that, Mike?
No, I think that's good. Explanation on where to see those additional tags. Just as Kayla said, if you don't see it or are missing some information that you typically see on your MLS, it just means when that MLS was mapped originally, that field didn't get added. We just need to reach out to support, and they'll walk you through that process of getting those new filters or tags added.
Perfect.
John asked, the market changes quickly. How fast does CINC update with the MLS data?
Yeah, most MLSs will allow us to update our sites based on the IDX feed every 5 minutes. I say most MLSs because there are some that will only allow you to do it every 15 minutes. There are some that only allow you to do it 4 times a day. It just depends, but most allow every 5 minutes. So you will typically see things update in that 5 to 15 minute window. For new listings, I would say, try to give it a few hours because there can sometimes be a lag. It just depends on how your MLS updates the feed. But for the most part, it's every 5 minutes. If you know that your MLS does that slower, doesn't allow it as often or as frequently, call them and let them know that you would like, them to do it faster. And because they won't listen to us to do it any faster. But if enough of their members were to say, hey, this is unacceptable, then they might change it, for all IDX feeds. So we are at the mercy of how quickly they will allow us to check. But again, for most, it's every 5 minutes.
Awesome. And then lastly, Darren asked why the MLS status is not preset to active for the site and what's that best practice?
Yeah, so a lot of people will say, well, I want to remove all pending listings from my site because I don't want people to see things that aren't active. And we actually have tried that before, and we find that it impacts how many leads register on your site. So it negatively impacts your ad performance. And what that means is, let's say someone came to my site and I only had active listings, and I had, because I'm bad at math, I'm going to use a nice round number, I had 20 listings on my site because I'm only showing active, but my MLS actually had 100, but 80 of them are pending. I'm still so bad at math. When I say it, I forget what number I said before, because 80 are pending, right? And we know that that's kind of likely right now because of the market and how fast it's moving. But I go to a competitor's site and they are showing active and pending. And so I get to see all 100. The perception of the lead is, oh, well, this site has more inventory. It has, more I can see. So I'm going to go with this site over the other one. And so we don't recommend hiding pending listings for that reason. You'll actually get about 30% reduction in your lead flow. Now, as for why it's not turned on in the saved search where we only send active, that has to do with being able to communicate with people over time or over their time frame. So if I had, 100 search results in here, and my time frame was a year, I may run out of those 100 listings if new homes haven't hit the market that match my criteria. So allowing the active and the pending to go out will help your leads see not only what all is out there, but it may also help them see how fast the market can move. And that can sometimes give people the little push they need to kind of work a little faster. Once they like that third or fourth pending home and you're finally saying, yeah, remember I explained the market, like it's moving really fast. It might kind of give them a kick in the pants, to say, okay, I got to get serious if I really, want to move on this next opportunity. That being said, you may have someone that gets really angry seeing pending listings in their email, or maybe you're getting ready for someone is ready to make some offers. That's when you might want to go in and set it to active. So it really can be something that you do for everyone. It can be something that you do just for people as they do get ready, to really get serious and start to make some offers. But I hope that explanation makes sense as to why we don't have it by default.
Awesome. That is all the questions that have come through chat so far.
Perfect. So I'm going to head back to the dashboard. I'm going to reset all again to take me back to my default. And we are now going to get into our F filters. F is for follow-up in this case. So remember, P was for prospecting or priority. F is for follow-up. So if you remember when I set the reminder on the lead that we were just working on, I'm going to pull that lead up. I set it to be for in the next 30 days. So if I click on this lead and go to reminders and plans, I can see the reminders for this lead. I can also mark them as complete here. But again, you may want, or you may kind of start to like working the P filters and knowing that you can go into the filter and just work everyone there. So this is simply a catch-all for all of your leads that have reminders that are due today or overdue today. And if you remember, when we set reminders, we can mark them as call, email, or other. And that's why we have 3 F filters for call, email, and other. So everyone in this F1 filter is going to have a next reminder date that is either due today or overdue. The reason we hold overdue people here is so you simply won't forget. Maybe that reminder popped up, you dismissed it, and now what's there to remind you, right? You got an email reminder, you deleted it. Now what's there to remind you to actually complete your follow-up? So that's why we hold people here as long as that reminder is overdue, as well as the people that are due today. So this is simply a list of the people that you need to make your follow-up calls on. Now, I actually see a no-no happening on this site right now, and that I have people that are in this filter that are in attempted contact. And hopefully after today, you've learned that we don't need reminders on attempted contact leads, because our reminder to call them is going to be the fact that they're in the P filters. So the only people I want to see in our F filters are people that we've marked as contacted. We've added a note, we've added a reminder, we've adjusted their search, and now it's time for us to follow up with them. So I know that I need to follow up with these people. I'm going to click into their profile. I'm going to mark it as complete. I'm going to then set a new reminder to follow up, because if I called them today, now I'm going to be looking 30 days in advance to mark another new reminder. And then when I get to there and I call them and solve that reminder, I'm going to be scheduling a new one for about 30 days out, so on and so forth, until they're ready to work with me and make a move. So the F filters are a lot simpler, but they also have a huge impact, because remember I said we can't talk to someone one time and then hope that they're going to call me when they're ready to make a move. I have to be proactive and be following up and building the relationship with them. Now, let's say you're working your leads. Let's say we got in touch with someone in P3. So we moved them to contacted, we added a note, and then we get distracted and we get a phone call. So we answer the phone call and I hang up and I come back and I'm like, what was I doing? I don't remember. And I move on. And I have forgotten to actually add a reminder and adjust someone's saved search. Now this person is kind of lost because they're going to be marked as contacted but not have a reminder. And that happens all the time, where we simply just forget, right? We get busy and we mark someone as contacted, but we forget to schedule the follow-up. That's why we actually like to create a saved filter in here with our F filters called the danger filter for leads that are in the pipeline stage of contacted but do not have a reminder. So I just filtered by pipeline stage contacted, and I'm going to add to it, they have a next reminder date that's not set. So here are my breadcrumbs. See how that happened? This looks familiar, right? But there's no saved filter title above it. We actually have to save this as a saved filter. So right now I'm looking at leads that do not have a reminder set and their pipeline stage is contacted. So here are people that are kind of lost in my system because I have not scheduled a follow-up for them. So I like to include this saved filter in my F filters so I can make sure I'm spending time catching these people and then actually making it a point to go back in and add that reminder to follow up. So now that I've got my filters, how do I save them? How do I make this a saved filter? To do that, I have to click into filters and click Save Current Filters. That'll give me the ability to name this danger. Some people will even make this an F4 filter. The reason it's called danger, the person who actually created this at CINC, his name's Eric Graffner. He's like one of the first 10 employees, I think, at CINC. He's been around forever. And he created this because these leads are a danger to your paycheck because you're not following up with them. Some people like to also say they're in danger of falling through the cracks, right? Whatever makes it make sense to you. These are leads that we are in danger of losing because we've had a good conversation, but we did not plan a follow-up. So when we add that, this is only going to be visible to me, the agent who created it. But if I am a site owner, broker level user, and I want everyone on the site, every agent working the site to be able to see this, when I click into this filter, I can then click my little pencil icon here and actually make it public for everyone. So this little box right here means for me only, for everyone on the site. So now, as I'm working my F filters, I do all my calls for the day, any emails I have, anything else, and who's falling through the cracks right now. I would go look and see, what did I talk to Destiny about? Where's my good pinned note? And then I'm going to add that reminder. And once I've added that reminder, now Destiny is no longer going to fit my criteria. So they will no longer be in my danger filter. And I'll be reminded to follow up based on the reminder that I set. Give me a yes in the chat if that makes sense to you, how we just added that saved filter. If you need me to show again, put a no for me. So yes, if that made sense and you're going to add that, no if you'd like me to go through it again. You got to make sure everyone's still awake. Good, seeing some yeses. Don't be shy. If you want me to do it again, we will do it again. Awesome. I got one wanting to do it again. I know there's someone else out there that wants me to do it again. Maybe just being shy.
Got a couple that came direct to me that are also a no. So
perfect. So to create this, I'm going to show you with the criteria of danger filter, but know that you can use any criteria you want to set up any filter you want. Remember that at the start of this webinar, I kind of gave you the criteria of favorite city that are contacted that has a first-time home buyer label. I could filter for that and create that filter. But instead, now I'm going to show you the danger filter, which is pipeline stage of contacted. And then filter for next reminder date, not set. There's my breadcrumbs. That's the criteria I'm looking for. Save that current filter. Name it and save. Now it's created as a saved filter. And this is where I can go in and make it public or keep it private. It's also where I can delete it. We'll go ahead and delete this one as well. So let me show you with the other criteria that we discussed. Favorite city of Kingsport. Pipeline stage of contacted. And a label. No one matches that one. Let's see what this label is. And then from here, I would save it. And that would keep me from having to go back and do that filter over and over and over again. Now I'm making a quick link essentially. I hope that that made sense. If you still have any questions about it, because I know it is quite a few clicks to find everything, please let me know. And at the end, we'll go over it one more time. And I see Stephanie asking about creating an email reminder, call reminder, other reminder. Couple of quick ways to do it is when you're here on the dashboard, if you wanted to set it for this lead, you could do it in quick actions. You can also go right to the next reminder column and click NA and do it from there. Again, you can also do it right in their profile. At CINC, we understand that people's workflows may be different, and so you can get a lot of the same information in a few different places. All of that works. But my My muscle memory always takes me right to quick actions to add it from here, because I'm generally adding it after I've added that good call note. And I see that Mike just put in the link to the CINC Help Center with more information on creating safe filters too. So if you do want to go over that one more time, we'll do it at the end of our open Q&A if anybody wants another walkthrough. With that being said, Mike, before we get into any questions that might be left, is there anything that I have skipped or missed that you think is important to share?
I don't think so. I think you've gotten all of the major topics we typically cover on this call. I can't think of anything that comes to mind offhand that you would have missed. So and we're all caught up on questions as well.
Perfect. Well, with that said, let me pull up our webinars page. We do have another webinar tomorrow, our office hours webinar. That will be Mike and I. That's once a month where we're actually going to be talking this month, tomorrow, about working with sellers, how to find additional sellers, how to maybe get them to move a little quicker with you. When I say move, how to get them to sign papers to list with you a little quicker. And then Thursday, we have a webinar where we're going to be talking about auto tracks, behavioral messaging, where we really dive deep into certain auto tracks as well. And then down here, we have where you can register for an accelerated training series. And then finally, our recording gallery, where we have scripting and role play webinars, webinars having to do with the CINC platform, specific AI webinars, and then webinars that are specifically made for our site owners. So lots of opportunity to keep learning here on this page and to sign up for additional webinars. Anything that you think would be a great resource here, let us know and we will get it added. So this is a great landing page for you to keep up to date with everything we have going on. And if you get vaccinated and you're feeling good and you're ready to come back in person with us, we also have our live training here on the site as well. So cincommunity.com is a great resource for you to know what's going on both virtually and live with Mike and Mike's team, my team, the CINC Live team here, where we deal all in training and making sure you're feeling comfortable using the platform. So everything is here online for you to stay up to date. So a big thank you, a reminder, this was recorded and we will actually be sending out an email at the end of the week with all of our recordings from this week. So you will get today, tomorrow's and Thursdays. And I think we're also going to include last week's as well, because we did have a scripting webinar last week. So you will get 4 recordings in your inbox this Friday, because we want you to feel as comfortable as possible working the site. So this has been the overview of how to prospect and follow up, how to make sure you are giving the system all the information it needs to successfully help you prospect, nurture, and follow up with people. So any questions you have at all, please give us a call. You can also click this Help Center to go directly to the CINC Help Center. And then up here under your name, you can also get the information to contact support. Email and phone, they're an awesome resource. And it's not just support like something's broken. It can also be, hey, how do I use this feature? Did I set this up correctly? They're an awesome help. So please give them a call or email whenever you need, because we're all here to help make you as successful as possible. And I know you have spent now an hour and a half with us. That's a big ask. I know we kept you a while, but now I hope that you are feeling as comfortable as possible. If you're still feeling kind of like, oh, this is a lot, it does take time to create muscle memory, but that's okay. You just have to do it over and over again until it's a habit. And anything you have kind of as a roadblock along the way, just give us a call and we will help you solve it. So again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I hope I see you on our other webinars. Until then, bye-bye. Thank you, Mike.
Bye, everybody.